Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello everyone, welcome to ForumIAS. I'm 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐬𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐵. In this video, we're going to have an analysis of the Hindu newspaper of today, that is 11th of September 2023. So let's get started. So these are the articles that we're going to discuss in today's video. So our first discussion would be on Summit concludes, Modi calls for virtual review meet in November. And then our second article would be, as G20 plans to explore crypto regulation, India may wait to firm up domestic laws. And the third one would be, Apple country gets ground ready for cannabis cultivation. So these three would be important for us from prelims point of view for UPSC CSE and also for other competitive examinations. And coming to our mains perspective, we have two important articles here. One is genetic engineering gives mosquito control an upgrade, and the second one is redouble efforts to reduce disaster risks. So these are the articles that we're going to discuss. So let's get started. So here is our first article. Summit concludes, Modi calls for virtual review meet in November. So this is about our G20. So as we know, this year the presidency of G20 is for India. And along with this, as we all know that the G20 presidency for this year is by India, we have to also know about the G20 presidency of the previous year and also the upcoming year. So these 3 years would be important for us from examination point of view. So as far as last year is concerned, before India, it was Indonesia, and India has handed over this to Brazil. So these things you have to remember. This is the first point that you have to remember. So we all definitely remember that India is presiding this G20 this year. So last year it was Indonesia. So from Indonesia it was handed over to India, and India will hand it over to Brazil. So coming to this, summit concludes, Modi calls for virtual review meet in November. So the G20 under Indian presidency, it should convene virtually towards November end. So towards the end of the November month, they are planning to have a virtual meet, a virtual review. So what they'll do in this virtual review, they'll take stock of the progress that is made on the proposals received during September 9 to 10 summit. So on September 9th and 10th, whatever proposals were made, so how far was the progress of these proposals? That review will be done virtually in November, so that too at the end of the November month. So coming to what are the important outcomes of G20 Summit 2023, this will be important for us both from prelims and mains point of view also. So if you get a question regarding the G20 presidency of India, like what are the outcomes that we had, you have to mention these outcomes. So first is African Union was granted permanent G20 membership. This is a very remarkable thing that we have to remember. So African Union, it was granted a permanent G20 membership. So African Union consists of 55 countries, and this African Union, it was granted the permanent membership of G20. And the second important one is adoption of G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration. And the third one is bilateral discussions. For example, there were discussions between India and UK bilaterally. So these bilateral discussions are also very important from international relations point of view. And the next one is addressing the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So we know that since past few days or few months we have a lot of discussions on this Russia-Ukraine conflict. Since the conflict has started, there were a lot of discussions on this. So why should we discuss here regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Because it has global ramifications. That means whatever effect is there regarding this Russia-Ukraine conflict, though the conflict is between Russia and Ukraine, it definitely has a lot of impact on entire world, be it on the supply chains or on the global trade, etc. So the G20, they have also discussed about this Russia-Ukraine conflict. So how to address this conflict, how to restore peace in the world. Right, so these were discussed, and also the launch of Global Biofuel Alliance. So this is regarding the ethanol blending with petrol. So this was also discussed, that is the launch of Global Biofuel Alliance. Then coming to the next one, it is G20 commitment to WTO reforms. So the World Trade Organization, it has brought about some reforms regarding the trade between different countries. So G20 has given a commitment to stick to this WTO reforms. Then the next one is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So this corridor, it will be a rail and shipping corridor. So this will definitely connect many countries, and it will be very helpful for trade and also for the transport of goods, etc. So this would definitely enhance the trade of this region, especially which covers this economic corridor. And the next one is the G20 commitment to cross border payments. So to have transparent and faster payments, so they have committed to a cross border payment system. And then global push for crypto asset policies. So we'll also discuss about this cryptocurrency in the upcoming articles that we have today. So for now, remember there was also a global push for crypto asset policies. So we'll discuss what is cryptocurrency, so how can we regulate this and all. So here we have one of the previous year questions in UPSC. So 3 years back, that is in 2020, we had a question on G20, in which one of the following groups are all the four countries members of G20. So here we are showing this question so that whenever you go through the previous year questions, you'll get to know how questions can be asked on a particular topic, so that you'll be prepared in that way according to the needs of UPSC. Right. So here we have studied about this G20 and India's presidency, but you have to know how questions can be framed on this particular topic. So how questions were asked in the previous years. So here you can see, if you look at this question, the all the member countries of G20 are very important. So you have to remember all the member country names, that is the 20 countries, so that whenever you get these kinds of questions, you can easily answer those questions. And also regarding presidency, questions can be asked. And as we have already discussed, Indonesia has handed over G20 presidency to India, and India will hand it over to Brazil. So it is not possible to remember all the presidencies. So at least this year, the previous year, and the next year would be important. So coming to this question, here the correct answer would be A, that is Argentina, Mexico, South Africa, and Turkey. So these are the members of G20. So this question is shown. The main intention of showing this previous year question is that you have to also remember the G20 countries. So this is about our first article. So moving forward to the second article, as G20 plans to explore crypto regulation, India may wait to firm up domestic laws. So as we have discussed earlier also, there was a discussion on this crypto assets and cryptocurrency. So we'll look at what was discussed in this G20 meeting regarding this crypto regulation, that is the regulation of this cryptocurrencies. So have to regulate these cryptocurrencies, etc. So all these G20 countries, they have agreed that we'll explore some coordinated regulatory framework for this crypto assets. So whatever crypto assets that we have regarding this cryptocurrencies, like have to regulate these crypto assets. On this, the G20 countries have come to an agreement, right? So they have also come up with, they're also planning to come up with some domestic regulation for this cryptocurrencies. So with the G20 countries agreeing to explore a coordinated regulatory framework for crypto assets, India could wait a while longer before firming up its domestic regulations for cryptocurrencies, right? So in India, whatever domestic, that is within our country, whatever regulations we are planning to bring about regarding this cryptocurrencies, we are going to wait a bit, because the G20 countries, they have also agreed to explore a coordinated regulatory framework. Right. So whatever cryptocurrencies that we have, these are cross-border. We cannot stick to a particular country. Right. So these cryptocurrencies, whatever we have, India is trying to bring about a domestic framework. So we are going to wait for a while, because all the G20 countries said that they have agreed that we all together will have a coordinated regulatory framework for this crypto assets. Right. Because we cannot completely have a ban on these cryptocurrencies. Earlier, our Reserve Bank of India has said that we'll have a complete ban on these cryptocurrencies, and this was also under consideration by the government. But now we are going to wait a bit regarding this. Why? Because just one country alone cannot regulate this cryptocurrencies. Right, so these cryptocurrencies cannot be regulated by a ban by one single country. So the support and coordination of different countries is definitely needed to have a control or to regulate these cryptocurrencies, right? So we must have a global consensus on this, and G20 leaders declaration, it has also endorsed this financial stability board. So what does this board do? It will give some recommendations on what, so it will give recommendations to regulate and also to supervise this crypto assets and activities. So we have been talking about this cryptocurrency, etc. So what is this cryptocurrency? So it is basically a digital or virtual currency that uses cryptography for security, right? So cryptocurrency, it is basically a digital currency or a virtual currency. So what does it use? It will use cryptography for security, right? So for the security of this particular digital currency, they will be using this cryptography. So it's a decentralized currency. What does it mean? So it means that it is not controlled by any government or any institution. So we have a term also known as altcoin. So altcoin means whatever cryptocurrencies we have as an alternative to this Bitcoin, which is a very famous one, which is the first one. So after Bitcoin, whatever alternate coins were developed, they are known as altcoins. Like we have Ethereum, we have Litecoin, etc. So this is about the G20 and the crypto assets and regulation of cryptocurrencies. So our next article is Apple country gets ground ready for cannabis cultivation. So here it is about the cannabis cultivation in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Why? Because Himachal Pradesh government, it is trying to legalize this cannabis, that is hemp cultivation in the state. Right? So whoever cultivators or farmers are there for this cannabis or hemp, they are optimistic. They are hopeful that they'll have an economic boost. That means that they'll get some revenue out of this. Right. So our lawmakers, they have comprised of a committee. So they have explored the possibility of this legal cultivation of cannabis. Right. And this committee, whatever lawmakers committee that was there, that particular committee has recommended the cultivation of cannabis, but this should be for non-narcotic use. So this should be for medicinal purposes, industrial purposes, or scientific use. That means for any kind of research on this hemp or cannabis. Only for these purposes, this particular cannabis or hemp has to be used. So it should not be used for narcotic purposes or in terms of drug abuse. So this is a very important article because it also has some social impacts or social concerns. So why does cannabis cultivation have social impacts? Because it is definitely also prone to drug abuse. Right. So there are concerns from the people. There are social impacts because adolescents and youth, they are being drawn towards the use and abuse of cannabis. So drug abuse could be done. So we have to be aware of this cannabis cultivation. So it is a social concern. And coming to the botanical class of this hemp, it's of Cannabis sativa cultivars grown specifically for industrial or medicinal use. So it is produced in parts of our state of Himachal Pradesh. So though it is illegal under the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances, that is NDPS Act of 1985. So here this NDPS Act of 1985 is also important. Try to remember the Act, that is NDPS Act, and the year, that is 1985. So according to this particular Act of 1985, it is not legal to have the production of cannabis. So cultivation of cannabis is illegal according to this NDPC Act, PS Act of 1985. So here we have a small question, that is, which state has become the first state in the country to legalize cannabis cultivation? So here we have seen that in Himachal Pradesh, cannabis is being cultivated. So just pause for a second, think for a while and try to answer this. So here the answer for this question is Uttarakhand. So the state of Uttarakhand, it is the first state in our country to legalize this cannabis cultivation. And as we know, Uttarakhand is one of the neighboring countries of Himachal Pradesh. So this is one point that you have to remember. This can be asked as a prelims question too. So, coming to the NDPS Act. So, why was this particular act enacted? So, this was actually enacted to meet the United Nations Conventions on Drug Policy, and this was enacted in the year 1985. So, why did we bring about this NDPS Act back in 1985? So, this is to prevent rampant drug use in the society. So, we have already discussed cannabis has a social impact on the society, right? So what is that impact? That is drug abuse. So to prevent that rampant drug use in the society, this NDPS Act was brought about. So what does this act do? It will impose a ban on extracting the resin and the flowers from the plant, but it determines the method and extent of its cultivation for medicinal and scientific purposes. That means it should not be used in terms of drug use, right? So in terms of drug abuse or drug use, it should not be used. That means its resin and its flowers, it should not be done. So there is a ban on extraction of this resin and flowers, but for medicinal use and also for scientific purposes, it can be cultivated, right? And for that also a particular method is prescribed by this particular act, right? And here one important section of NDPS Act is important for us from examination point of view. So you have to remember this. Section 10A clause 3 of NDPS Act. So this empowers the states to make rules regarding the cultivation of any cannabis plant, production, possession, transport, consumption, use and purchase, and sale and consumption of cannabis except charas. Right. So here we have seen that under NDPS Act of 1985, there is a ban on this particular cultivation of cannabis, right? But within this act itself, we have one section, that is section 10A clause 3, and according to this particular section, if any state it wants to legalize the cultivation of cannabis, then it can bring about those rules and regulations regarding how to cultivate it, how to use it, half is a method to extract those things from the cannabis produce, and have to use it. So this can be regulated and the rules can be issued by the particular state. So this was given under section 10A clause 3 of NDPS Act. So this is one point that you have to remember. So coming to our next one, genetic engineering gives mosquito control an upgrade. So is mosquito control a very important thing? Yes, mosquito control is equally important because the earliest known mosquitoes from the fossil record, they date back to at least 70 million years. And do you know the evidence of mosquito-borne diseases like malaria, they date back to Egyptian mummies from 2000 BC. So since times immemorial, mosquitoes were present and mosquito borne diseases were also present. So, we are right now using this genetic engineering techniques to control this mosquitoes and mosquito borne diseases. So, we have to be aware of the various diseases caused by mosquitoes from science and technology point of view. From for various exams, we have to know about the various diseases, how are they caused, not only mosquito borne diseases, but also you have to know which disease is caused by virus, which all diseases are caused by bacteria, which diseases are caused by mosquitoes, etc. So here you can see, apart from malaria, malaria is the most famous one that we know, that is the most famous disease caused by these mosquitoes. So apart from malaria, which claims the lives of over 500,000 people every year, see how big the population is here, right? So the death toll because of malaria, right, apart from malaria, which claims the lives of over 500,000 people every year, and also malaria, it is infected to close to 250 million people. And mosquitoes, they serve as vectors for various other diseases. Vectors means what happens is, for example, a particular microbe is causing a disease, it will carry it. Mosquito will carry that particular microbe, right? So it will act as a vector, that is like a vehicle for that particular disease. So other diseases are like we have dengue, Zika, lymphatic filariasis, and yellow fever. So all these diseases are also caused by this mosquito, and mosquito acts as a vector for various diseases, right? So if it is not directly contributing to the disease, it'll be acting as a vehicle for that transmission of that disease. That means it will be a vector for that disease. So the rapid urbanization of the world's population, it has led to an annual surge in mosquito borne illnesses like dengue. So because there is lot of urbanization and world population is also equally increasing, there is also annually, that means every year, there is an increase in the mosquito borne diseases like dengue, etc. So these have expanded into new territories also. So if there is a lot of rapid urbanization, what will happen? Earlier uninhabited places are also now occupied by people. So these mosquitoes are also occupying those uninhabited areas, and these are also coming into new territories. So the fundamental idea behind this genetic manipulation of mosquitoes, so in the title itself we have seen that genetic engineering gives mosquito control an upgrade. So, why are we even going for genetic engineering? Because the idea behind this is to systematically control their populations by interfering with their reproduction. So, we have to control this mosquito population somehow, because we have seen that it is claiming lives of over 500,000 people every year, which is a big number, right? And also it is infecting close to 250 million people. So what we have to do, we have to definitely control the population of mosquitoes. So how can we do this? We are going to do this by interfering with their reproduction system. So systematically we are going to control the population of mosquitoes by interfering with its reproduction system. So how is this done? They'll be using a particular protein. So what does this particular protein do? It will cut the mosquito's DNA at a part that does not encode a particular sequence in the genome. So whatever protein is introduced, it will cut the mosquito's DNA at a particular part. The targeted part would be cut, and this triggers a natural mechanism in the cell containing the DNA to repair it, and forces the cell to incorporate a sequence called the drive sequence into the damaged portion, right? So whatever protein is there, it will cut that mosquito's DNA at a particular part. So what will happen when it is cut? There will be a natural mechanism will be triggered within the cells of the mosquito. So that cell which contains this DNA, it will trigger the a response that you have to repair it. So there is a cut, you have to repair it. So it will force the cell to incorporate a particular sequence, and this sequence is known as drive sequence. So this is done into the damaged portion, right? So this is how genetic engineering is used. And in 2020, a genetically modified mosquito, so it was released in counties in Florida and Texas. And genetically modified male mosquito, they mated with female mosquitoes, but the self-limiting gene, it prevented the female offspring from surviving, right? So we have seen that we have modified some, genetically modified some male mosquitoes, and they were released into the atmosphere. So when they are released into the environment, they have mated with some normal female mosquitoes. So genetically modified male mosquitoes, they mated with female mosquitoes, right? But what happened is there were no offsprings. There were no female offsprings, especially. Right? So female offsprings could not survive. What was the reason behind that? Because we have already modified it genetically. So because of that, there is a self-limiting gene that is present in this genetically modified male mosquito. Because of that, female offspring, it could not survive, and male mosquitoes, it would then disappear from the environment after around a dozen generations, right? This will happen because whatever female mosquitoes that we have, if we are introducing all these genetically modified male mosquitoes, they are going to mate with this female mosquitoes, and the female offsprings or baby mosquitoes, female baby mosquitoes will not survive, only male mosquitoes would survive, and they will go and mate with other female mosquitoes. Again, there will be only male offsprings. So in that way, there will be a reduction in the female mosquitoes, and slowly these male mosquitoes will also disappear because there would not be any female mosquitoes to mate and have offsprings. So around a dozen generations, male mosquitoes will also disappear from the environment. So this is how systematically we are going to have a control on this mosquitoes, and this is done by targeting at their reproduction system. So hope you are clear with this. So here is our last article for today. That is one important editorial that we have: redouble efforts to reduce disaster risks. So disaster management is a very important topic for us from examination point of view. So we are going to look at this. So the world stands at a critical juncture, and risks are being created faster than they are being reduced, right? So whenever risks are being created, we are going to try and reduce it, but risks are being created very faster than they are being reduced. That means if 10 risks are present, there are only 5 risks were reduced, right? So risks are getting increased and the reduction is slow when compared to the risks that are being created. So that is why this editorial says that the world stands at a critical juncture. And as we know, after this COVID-19 pandemic, because of its aftershocks combined with the polycrisis of war that we have seen, debt situations, and also food insecurity, because of all these things, we are putting our collective ability to cope to the test, right? So these are all the collective things that we have all these problems combined, and it is the most vulnerable countries and communities which are paying the greatest price despite having contributed least to the problem. So for example, we have a particular country A. It did not contribute to any pollution or global warming, etc., but because of other countries which are doing that, these countries have become most vulnerable for that effects, and these countries are getting most affected. For example, a big country B is contributing to climate change, that is, it is having lot of pollution, lot of global warming, etc., but there is another country, small country A, which is a environment friendly country, and it is contributing very less to the pollution, but it is a very vulnerable country to have this impacts on it, right? So the most vulnerable countries and communities, they are getting most affected, though they are contributing less to the problem, right? And as far as our country India is concerned, we are already among the world's most disaster prone countries and is experiencing this new reality acutely. So if we look at the most disaster prone countries in the world, we are already among those. So when we have lot of disasters and disaster risks, what solutions do we have? So let's have a look at the solutions. The SDGs, that is the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 SDGs that we have, they remain our best blueprint for peace and prosperity, together with commitments made in Paris to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and the global framework for reducing disaster risks, the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So these are very important. So first thing here, you have to remember the 17 SDGs. That will be also important from examination point of view. You have to also remember the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. And first solution would be our sustainable development goals. And also, after this COVID-19 pandemic, every country has learned a lot of lessons. Like, if we face such a pandemic, have to respond to that. How can we coordinate with other countries? How can we coordinate with lot of countries and people? How can we reduce such risks, etc.? So in that way, we have learned a lot of lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. And this also includes the importance of systems wide disaster risk reduction, resilience, adaptation, etc. Right? So, resilience and adaptation are also equally important. And another reason for optimism is India's leadership on disaster risk reduction. So, all the 28 states, they have prepared their own disaster management plans in the recent years. So this is a very good sign that all our states, they have prepared their own disaster management plans. That means within the state itself, they have prepared they're prepared for those disasters. That means if we face this particular disaster, this is how we would respond to that. In that way, every state has brought about its own plans in the recent years. So this is a very good and optimistic thing for us, right? And the 15th Finance Commission in India, it introduced significant reforms to disaster risk financing. So, in order to face such risks, some financing is also needed, right? So, for disaster risk financing, the 15th Finance Commission in India, it has introduced significant reforms for this financing. And on the international stage, India is promoting disaster resilience and sustainability. So, how are we doing this? We are doing this through Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So, what is this? It's a global partnership for building resilience and infrastructure. So ultimately, after all these problems, risks, and solutions, what is the ultimate goal? It is a global multi risk warning system for all kinds of hazards, whether it would be biological hazard, tectonic hazard, or technological hazard. Whatever be the hazard, the ultimate goal is having a global multi-risk warning system, right? So whenever we have this hazards or risks, it can be biological, it can be tectonic like earthquakes, or it can be some like floods, etc., or some technological risks. Whatever be the hazard, whatever be the risk, we are aiming at a global multi-risk warning system. So we must enhance international cooperation for this. So how can this be done? This global multi-risk warning system, this can be achieved only when we have a global consensus and an international cooperation. So this should be enhanced in disaster prevention, response and recovery, especially for the countries of the global south. So this is about this article. So, coming to one of the previous year questions and mains, discuss the recent measures initiated in disaster management by the government of India, departing from the earlier reactive approach. So, this question was asked in 2020. So, 3 years ago, this question was asked. So, disaster management is a very important topic from examination point of view. So, this is about the articles today in the Hindu. So, hope you have liked this video. So, please do follow us on our social media platforms, and please do like, share, and subscribe to Forum IAS. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye bye.